Yesterday's prophecies, today's headlines. This is the Hal Linsey Report. And now, Hal Linsey.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hal Linsey Report. Last week, the U.S. Senate passed S. 1867 by a near unanimous vote of 93-7. Included as part of the overall defense authorization bill that finances the Defense Department, the legislation effectively allows the U.S. military to treat the U.S. domestic interior as part of the battlefield in the war on terror. That provision essentially repeals the constitutional prohibition against using U.S. troops as part of domestic law enforcement. Moreover, it will permit the military to indefinitely detain U.S. citizens suspected for having ties to terror. This means Americans could be declared domestic terrorists and thrown into a military brig with no recourse whatsoever. As a matter of fact, in England, just this last week, those who were part of the Occupy London protest have been declared terrorists. Now, if that can be done in England, they could just as well declare Occupy Wall Street protesters as terrorists. And there's no telling where things like this can end. This is part of the great challenge of keeping a democracy or a republic. And in order to keep freedom, you have to go along with things like that. Now, some of you may be thinking, that does sound like a great idea. After all, one of the prime weapons that Islamic terrorists use against the United States is America's tradition of domestic liberty and freedom of movement. You may be saying, go after those terrorists, wherever they may be found. But not so fast. We all want to defend our nation against deadly terrorists, but here's the problem with Senate Bill S. 1867. It allows the White House to define who is a terrorist. And if you take only a quick look at the Department of Homeland Security's list of potential terrorists, it includes Christian extremists, Jewish extremists, anti-immigration extremists, anti-abortion extremists, tax resistors, the alternative media, gun owners, people who stockpile gold and silver, and others who are definitely not Islamic terrorists. That's a lot of extremists. What would you guess would be the dominant political persuasion of Americans who support gun ownership? Alternative media, oppose unrestricted immigration, stockpile precious metals, distrust the government, or interpret current events as they relate to the end of the world. There's evidently some kind of an extremism to go with almost every letter in the alphabet, with one exception. If the DHS list is intended to be an exhaustive list, then Americans have nothing to fear from any extremist group that starts with an I. This provision in the Senate bill was authored in secret by Senators Carl Levin and John McCain. Pray that clear heads will prevail and it will be stripped from the Defense Authorization Act. In the meantime, contact your senator and representative and let them know what your opinion is. The recent statements and activities of the major players in the Middle East, especially those of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, suggest both sides are not just poised for regional war in the next few weeks, but that it's already a foregone conclusion. Among the telltale indications is a large-scale military exercise in eastern Syrian town of Palmyra, widely seen as a demonstration that Syria's armed forces are still under Assad's command, especially Syria's sophisticated missile program. On Sunday, Damascus issued a statement saying the Syrian army has staged a live-fire drill in the eastern part of the country under warlike circumstances with the aim of testing its missile weaponry in confronting any attack. Videotapes of the exercise showed missile fire, brigade strength practice of 600 millimeter and 300 millimeter multiple launch rocket systems, and offensive movements of Syrian armor brigades backed by ground-to-ground missiles with short 150 to 200 kilometer ranges. This all adds up to a serious threat by the Syrians, together with an impressive demonstration of Syrian capability. While all this is going on in Syria, Prime Minister Netanyahu announced that his party would hold early elections, 2 years early, and scheduled for sometime before January 31st, 2012. Netanyahu called for early elections following a concerted U.S. effort to portray his current Israeli government as a collection of right-wing extremists who would not have the support of the Israeli people in the event of war. Netanyahu hopes early elections will demonstrate the nation's solidarity when it comes to facing down Syria or launching a preemptive attack against Iran. Finally, there is the game of cat and mouse going on between the United States and the Russians. The administration dispatched the 6th Fleet battle group led by the aircraft carrier, the USS George H.W. Bush, to the Mediterranean opposite Syria. Now, in response, the Russians airlifted approximately 72 SSN-26 anti-ship missiles to Syria. These missiles are capable of hitting a naval target more than 200 miles away with deadly accuracy. The U.S. responded by moving the USS Bush out of harm's way, while the USS Carl Vinson strike group took their position off the coast of Iran. Russia's only aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov, was sent along with a flotilla of Russian-guided missile destroyers to lie anchored off Syria. Neither the U.S. nor the Russians would have sent such powerful fleets to the region unless they were relatively certain war is imminent. And unless one of the four players steps back from the brink, it will probably come within a matter of the next few weeks. What comes next? Will Israel pull the trigger? In recent weeks, Israel has been sending more signals than a traffic light. Among other things, it has practiced long-distance missions in Italy with NATO and test-fired a Jericho-3 ballistic missile. All events are clearly aimed at preparing the nation for war. Israel has been waiting for the United States to take the lead, but it seems all but certain now that the Obama administration is prepared to live with a nuclear-armed Iran, even if Iran's neighbors are not. Open-source materials from the Los Angeles Times to the London Sunday Times to the Jerusalem Post are filled with the reports that Saudi Arabia is so concerned about the Iranian bomb that they have privately agreed to open an air corridor for the Israeli warplanes. One report indicates that the Saudis even tested how they would stand down their air defenses to make way for an Israeli strike force. There are also reports that the Obama administration is seeking to expand military ties with Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman as a hedge against Iran. I don't believe that what we're seeing take shape now will become the predicted Gog-Magog war. This means that whatever action Israel does take against the Iranians will have to leave Iran as a viable nation. At the time of the Gog-Magog war, Ezekiel describes Israel this way: "You will say, I will go up against a land of unwalled villages. I will go to a peaceful people who dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates." There has never yet been a single moment in the history of the modern state of Israel in which the prophecy of Ezekiel has fit. That is what makes it such an important part of an overall scenario. Israel was conceived out of the Holocaust, born in the midst of wars, and has lived its short life in a constant state of conflict. Israel has been in a declared state of war or conflict with every country in the Arab world, except Jordan and Egypt, since the day it declared independence back in 1948. 34 nations have no relations with Israel or refuse to recognize her right to exist. But Ezekiel's prophecy pictures Israel living at a time of peace just before the time of the Gog-Magog war. So this can't be it. That doesn't mean that there's no chance of conflict between Israel and Iran. The Bible doesn't rule it out. Insofar as Iran is concerned, it only confirms that Iran survived to join Russia in a future invasion of Israel, while the Jewish state believes itself to be living in peace and security. That condition cannot be said to exist when 34 countries out of 192 are opposed to our very existence. So, what are we seeing take place right now? I think that Israel will take some action against Iran that will take them off the table as an immediate threat. Perhaps an EMP strike over Iran, blinding them and returning them technologically to the 1890s. In 1991, America's military stunned and shocked the world when it cut through the fifth largest and most combat-experienced army in the world like a hot knife through butter. They destroyed Iraq as a military threat in a matter of weeks. The rest of the Islamic world didn't like Saddam Hussein either, but then America crushed his army like a beer can, and they decided they didn't like America even more. In 1991, most of the Arab world fought alongside our forces against Iraq. Since then, they fought against us. An Israeli victory over Iran will do for Israel what America's victory over Saddam has done for us, except that it won't take nearly as long, since Israel doesn't have any friends in the region in the first place. And that, I think, is where we're headed. I could be wrong. Time will tell. But the Bible is never wrong. And it says that when the Gog-Magog war breaks out, Israel will think itself dwelling in peace and security. And I believe that is a result of the Antichrist making a covenant with them to guarantee their security. But anybody believing that describes Israel today just doesn't pay attention to what's going on. I'll be back in a moment. Well, at this time, when we're approaching Christmas, I want to continue with a meditation on the wonder of what happened and took place on Christmas Day. One of the simplest poems I've ever heard was, "He came to die on a cross of wood, yet made the hill on which it stood." Meditate on that. That's it for tonight. God willing, I'll see you next week.